Hello again, everyone. JW here, and I'd like to expand a bit more on a topic that I truly love, the culture of Tiki. Now, we have all seen those vintage images of carved wooden Tiki statues surrounded by palm fronds, and the occasional faux Tiki torch sparsely dotted in the background of many a restaurant from the 1950s era. The sights, the sounds, the flavors, and the feelings of being somewhere exotic, tropical, they created memories, and for many folks, they've lasted a lifetime. Now, Tiki has an interesting reputation when it comes to its place in American cultural history. Adults were looking for a way to kind of escape their normal everyday lives, and children were getting to explore new and exotic cultures, all while enjoying a nice meal out with a family, or maybe it was a cocktail with friends. Martin Kate, the author of Smuggler's Cove, right here, understood that feeling from a very early age. He actually grew up attending this style of restaurant with his family. And as Martin grew older and decided to open his own tiki bar, he knew that tiki's not about being kitschy or tacky, it's artistry. Now, the tiki cultural movement created many major impacts due to its post-World War II timing. A change in the popular music, and then eventually leading to a resurgence in recent years for kind of those feelings of the years gone by. So let us take a look into the tiki cultural movement, what and who started it, its success, and how it impacted generations of Americans. So the tiki cultural movement that evolved in the US was based on the Western interpretations of the Maori and Polynesian cultures. These were inspired by the tales of explorers, and then authors wrote adventure stories set in the South Sea, like islands, and on the waters of the South Pacific. These stories allowed readers to create romanticized notions about tropical and exotic locales, and they themselves began to idealize the concept of kind of a native lifestyle. Chris Pinto's website, TikiLoungeTalk.com, discusses the origins of who actually started the tiki movement in Southern California. Chris said, Don Beach, also known as Don the Beachcomber, is generally credited as the first swanky cat to open a specifically tiki Polynesian themed restaurant and lounge in Hollywood, California in 1934. Now, John Henderson, author of California Tiki, A History of Polynesian Idols, Pineapple Cocktails, and Coconut Palm Trees, summarizes the deepest roots of the impact that tiki had on American culture. John said that Americans constructed tiki palaces and festooned their backyards with palms and torches in an effort to create a visceral and oral and tactile escape to a world that never existed except in their dreams. Now, Southern California is where the tiki culture truly began, and the sounds of tiki were kind of starting to stake their claim. It was during the 1950s that tiki music emerged, and it could be classified into two different genres. You had exotica music and surf music. Now, exotica music relied heavily on the percussion and Hawaiian instruments like a ukulele or steel guitar. And this was typically played by the big band acts like Les Baxter or Martin Denny. In fact, in the March 5th, 2005 edition of the New York Times, Ben Cesario reveals that one of Martin Denny's first albums, Exotica, went on to become #1 on the Billboard charts. And that specific album is what eventually gave a name to that genre of music. Exotica the album, Exotica genre. Philip Hayward, the author of Widening the Horizon, Exoticism in Post-War Popular Music, sat down to an interview with Martin Denny. In the interview, Denny described the musical style as a combination of the South Pacific and the Orient. It's what a lot of people imagined the islands to be like. It's pure fantasy, though. Tiki was closely linked with the California surf culture, and this genre of music was made famous by performers such as the Deltones, the Surfaris. You also had Dick Dale, but it was reinforced in pop culture of the time with the introduction of Polynesia in major blockbuster films. For example, Elvis Presley's Blue Hawaii or Gidget Goes Hawaiian. Now, Tiki did suffer a decline as the disco era and the Vietnam War began, but it has found a renaissance in recent decades. So while Previous generations viewed Tiki as a form of escapism. Today's culture, or today's Tiki culture, is kind of viewed as reclaiming the American birthright and taking pride in the creative expression of post-war America. Sven Kirsten's book Tiki Modern is one of the first places the term Polynesian pop was used to describe the Tiki movement of the 1950s and early 1960s. So the Tiki culture continues to thrive with events like conventions and festivals. In fact, the longest running festival and largest Tiki festival is Tiki Oasis, which is located in San Diego, California. These conventions feature events like educational panels during the daytime and live music performances at night. The Tiki culture produced its most successful ventures during the 1950s, then revived itself in recent years. From kind of the cold, darkened basements it had been relegated to, Tiki has created a lifelong fondness for many. In every cocktail with a paper umbrella, or anytime a Martin Denny album spins up to speed. That is how the Tiki movement came to existence, producing a form of escape for us to all enjoy, and allowing it to live within our fond memories and hearts. The impact of the Tiki movement was more than kitschy decor and fancy drinks. It was a way for Americans to escape to that island paradise somewhere in their minds. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one.